The title of today's event is Elevate Your Vibration with Intuitive Leadership. Jenny is an Akashic Records guide and energy healer with over 10 years of experience empowering conscious leaders and spiritual entrepreneurs. Through her unique approach, Jenny combines intuitive guidance and practical insights to help clients achieve deep transformation. She specializes in helping individuals trust themselves, embrace their power, and live in alignment with their true essence. With a focus on authenticity, presence, and embodiment, Jenny's teachings inspire profound and professional growth. Take it away, Jenny. You're muted.
Thanks. So what does it even mean to elevate your vibration with intuitive leadership? And even the word elevate your vibration, like what the heck does that even mean? You know, essentially at the core of it, it means that you're willing to do the work on you, to face the shit, to go through transformation, come back to yourself, learning how to trust yourself and your intuition and any other things that are thrown on your path. At least this is what it's meant for me. This started for me with a journey that I didn't realize was the journey of me coming back home to myself. Ever since I was a little girl, I only knew how to achieve because when I achieved, that meant I had accolades. That meant I had like pats on the back. I felt like I had love. I was always an A+ student. I never, rarely got in trouble. And when I did, it was like, oh, I broke a pencil. Oh God, I'm going to get grounded. Like I really just didn't break the rules. I was so mortified to have anybody be upset with me. Then as I've grown up and become an adult and started to pull away from all the different things in life and all the different realities that we are presented with in the adult world, in addition to anything we're presented to along the way as we arrive there, I realized that there was more to me and there was more to life. And I can definitely track that all the way back to when I was younger. I always knew I was meant for more. Now, back when I was younger and a teenager and in college, I didn't know the terms like vibrational frequency or things like that. But I've always been on a spiritual journey. My dad introduced some spiritual books to me when I was in my teens. And as I've gone on the journey even further and even deeper, I've gone down some rabbit holes and I have really explored some wild stuff, especially when it relates to the metaphysical and the intuitive and the spiritual space. So now there are words that are like very normal to me and likely very normal to you, like living a 5D lifestyle or new earth or aligning to your timeline, or even chats like today about raising your vibration. Now, what I really want to like bring today is I'd like to bring some of the practicality that matches with this term, because when it comes to elevating your vibration from the essence of the way we understand it in the spiritual space, a lot of times this can be also be like equivalent to when we're talking about the different levels of consciousness and we're raising our consciousness and we're raising our understanding in the way in which we interact with the world and how we show up. And there are so many different paths to getting there, which that's a whole nother talk about there and what there is. And so for now, we're going to focus on this one idea of intuitive leadership. And perhaps it's something a little bit different than what you're expecting. And at the same time, it maybe is exactly what you were expecting. So this whole idea was sparked. So I work with the Akashic Records, if you don't already know. I am an Akashic Records channeler and intuitive. And what that essentially means is I tune into this energetic library, this energetic field that holds all souls, past, present, and future possibilities. So when I'm working on pulling through information for myself, for class, for other people, it's all about helping each one of us individually and collectively to raise our consciousness, to grow in our soul path, to be able to have deeper understandings and deeper experiences in this world. And this is when I had a conversation with one of my coaches. And this beautiful conversation, as she has leadership coach background, I was like, well, what the fuck's a leader? Like, apparently I'm supposed to be a leader in this world. What the hell does that mean? And of course, like any good coach would do, she goes, well, why don't you ask the Akashic Records and see? And I was like, okay, that sounds like a great idea. So I get into the Akashic Records and I'm a little bit like spicy about it. And I'm like, okay, well, what's a leader mean? What do I need to know about a leader? And why do you guys keep asking me to be a leader? Like, I was kind of like spicy. And what they shared with me is like the key essence of what we're going to talk about today is they said that there are 3 qualities to a leader, 3 characteristics, and that's authenticity, presence, and embodiment. So I'll say that again for those of you taking notes. That's number 1 is authenticity. Number 2 is presence. And number 3 is embodiment. So I've been sitting with this content for a while. And honestly, I'm sitting with it more than I ever have sat with any content in the past. Because as an A-type and going about doing things, oh, got information, go, got information, go, got information, go. Like, my brain likes new things. So it's hard for me to sit with the same thing over and over and over. And at the same time, that's exactly what I've been doing with this content. And what I've learned from this experience and working with the record keepers is that they're studying from a book, and studying from a book is very beautiful and it offers us a certain aspect into our own growth. But like, what about when you're actually like living the experience along the way? So leading up to this workshop, I was like, all right, well, what are we doing? What are we doing, record keepers? What am I doing? What's going on? How am I going to lead this? And in my mind's way, I had thought that I needed to like set up all this time to like figure it out and like plan it all out, to come and find out that they're going to give me some experiences that are going to have me experience what these things mean. And that seems to be that the place that when we're open to it and we are aware and we're welcoming it, there are things that can help us to really bring these truths into our life. And so the idea about intuitive leadership is more about like, how can we take these concepts, these 3 characteristics, and regardless of whether you're in like a formal leadership role or you really just want to live an amazing freaking life, all of it still applies, because this is really about coming back home to ourselves. And if we can, the word I want to say is embody, but since that's one of the words, so it's like if we can align with these 3 characteristics in our own life, what on earth is possible? Like anything. Okay. So let's start with authenticity. Authenticity is a word, and really honestly, all 3 of these words are things that have been thrown around a lot. You hear them a lot. And even just today in a conversation I overheard, I heard, just be authentically you. And I'm going to say that we have a feeling and understanding of what authenticity is and perhaps what it isn't. And we can feel or sense or know when things are in alignment or not. And I'm going to talk about a couple of those things to give a contrast. But I really would like to share a bit of what the record keepers shared about this that I feel like really helps to deepen it, because I believe that each one of us has an interest to be authentic as possible, or you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be in my circle. Like, this is part of your world. And there's like these small ways that it shows up. So the first way that the record keeper shared with me was authenticity is about loving all the pieces of yourself, even the ones that you may have disregarded or set aside, or perhaps you've hated, or maybe you've tried to run away from. For me, one of those pieces has been overthinking. I have literally villainized myself so many times in my adult world in my adult chapter of life and been angry that I overanalyze things, wondering how can I stop overthinking? It's screwing me up. It's blocking me from everything. And I think there comes a point where we will push against something so much that what if that pushing that we have actually creates more resistance for us? So when the record keeper shared that if we're able to accept all these parts of ourselves and see them as gifts, that we're each able to take a dial, like a radio dial, and turn up the volume when these gifts serve us, and turn down the volume when these gifts do not. So I can clearly see in my life that my overanalyzing helps me so much when I'm able to like take large pieces of information and go through it, or if I'm like planning something, or if like I'm having this like very logical conversation with somebody. And then there's also a point where it's too much and I need to like turn it down, because as an example that happened here recently, as I was working with an amazing copy coach, and I was like forcing and overthinking with my mind. And I thought that was the logical thing to do. I need to be smart about this. I'm a business owner. I have copy to write. I have a website. I have people's lives to change. Like, this is serious. And I know all of you can feel energy, so you can even feel the intensity of how I just shared that. Like, that is when my overthinking mind is full in play. And I love her. And at the same time, there's this opportunity to like, I say a lot, CTFO stands for chill the fuck out, and just relax a little bit. Like, what if I were to lean more into my intuition and to allow that to be a part of the experience too? My overthinking mind is there to think, okay, here's the pages on the website, and here's the things we need to say, and here's all the pieces that we need to connect. It's there for a reason. And I just turn down the volume. Sometimes we forget, but we know that that's a tool. We can turn down the volume. So I bet there's something that you can relate to in your own life, that this is something you can apply to this situation in your life. So if you do want to share it in the chat, you can, and you can type what that is in the chat. If not, I encourage you to like capture this moment so that you can remember to like turn up the volume and turn down the volume. So the journey continues with authenticity. Record keepers gave me another pretty powerful piece here. It's about being, not doing, being, and being in alignment with one's true essence and passions. It's when the inner world matches the outer world experience. When one is able to connect more deeply with oneself and to hear the inner voice and not the inner critic. The inner voice that many of you refer to potentially as the higher self or divine guidance, the more one's authenticity is able to be expressed and felt. I'm going to give an example on my situation with this, my own journey. So I've always been authentic as I knew how to be in that time. And as I grow, I'm able, especially with this information that I'm living and learning, is I can look back at my life and see where I was being, though at the most, inauthentic to myself. Because so much of my life, and I shared this at the beginning, so much of my life was about that outer validation. So with this new information, I began to really reflect and be like, where am I not honoring my authentic self, my inner world? Because I'm looking to match what the outer world is asking of me, or what I perceive it to be asking of me, and match that piece to my inner world. I'm gonna go even deeper with an example for this. This is a conversation that's been very present in my life here recently, and it's about spirituality and money. And there is a certain belief within the spirituality space, you may have come across this in your own journey, where if you're spiritual, you shouldn't charge. that you should be able to operate and show up for free. And perhaps there is a way that that works for those who are aligned and it's authentic for them. But what I found is I found myself in this place where I was stalling because I would hear these things that people would express in the spiritual space that would frustrate them about different spiritual guides and leaders. And they would say that they're manipulating when they're charging X amount, or that they weren't authentic and pure, or fill in the blank with any type of blanket statement along those lines. So the way I would internalize it is like, oh my gosh, I want to be pure. I want to be authentic. I don't want to do those things that these people complain about. And then in that space, I wasn't always doing anything because there was something inside of me going like, this doesn't feel right. But because that was what was happening in the outer world with some of the conversations, I had gone, well, maybe I don't know. Maybe that's not the case, but I knew something didn't feel right to me. I think what really shifted for me was hearing a comment that a friend of mine shared that one of their mentors said, that the true essence of spirituality and being a spiritual guide or influencer or coach is when you are able to fully trust. And if you charge in your business, that is bad and you don't fully trust. And I am so grateful for this experience because it allowed me to pop out of my people-pleasing self and realize where I've been inauthentic. And I was like, all right, cool. And I'm going to be a little sassy with this. This is not the person, but this was me breaking out. And really, this is like the authenticity bubbling up and coming out because I've held on to it for so long, these pieces. And I went, all right, great. That person thinks that. That doesn't align with me. That person's not my mentor. And let's say perhaps that this person is exactly right and they have hit gold in this idea. Then I guess for now I'm going to be operating in a state of lack until I figure it out. And then maybe I'll call them. But like it was this like ownership of being like, you know what? Fuck that. I'm not following that. That was a place where I did not realize until I realized that my inner world was not matching my outer world. I was going outside in and not inside out for that thing. So as you take a moment to reflect on this idea and concept of authenticity, you can write a little note to yourself, or if you do want to share in the chat for everybody, you can do that too. It's up to you. But just what is it that really sticks out to you right now? I'm going to be talking about a lot of things, so I want you to capture these things as we go so they don't get lost. I'll give you a moment to do that. Perfect. All right, I am going to, can everybody see the screen? Okay. Now we're going to move on to number 2, presence. So I'm going to share a message that came through, another message that came through of the record keepers. And this one's going to be a like word for word what came through because it's so impactful. Presence is linked to many things. And the aspect we'd like to bring into your awareness today is the differences and understandings between inner and outer presence. One can presumably exhibit aspects of presence that can lead themselves and others into perceiving presence as being achieved, with quotes, or reached, with quotes. Presence includes mind, body, and spirit. So for example, a body can be present. The spirit can be present. And the mind cannot be present. Perhaps that's maybe even you right now. Your body and your spirit is present, and perhaps your mind went off somewhere else. I can see you here, right? but you're somewhere else. A body and a mind can be present, but a spirit cannot be present. This is less likely to be happening now because this is like an out of body experience or astral traveling or you're sleeping or, like something else is happening. This is less likely to happen right now. Although, hey, there are so many people who have so many different gifts. So if you are like astral traveling right now and you're able to be here, like we need to chat. Like I need to know how you are able to like make it work. But for sake of conversation, let's say that that's not here. Okay. So it does require all three for presence in the 3D reality. And I think that's the key point here. Your body is present. So one in which the body is rooted, grounded, and present. The mind is calm, focused on the task, conversation, or event at hand. And the spirit is also present and also holding perspective. And they gave me the example of this holding perspective is it's like the higher self perspective where it's like present and participating, and how this final part of the higher self isn't like always consciously recognized and can still be present. So you may not go, oh yeah, my higher self here right now, but it can still be present right now in this moment. So have a little fun, short activity for us to go into to be able to experience what this means. We're going to just take short moments to be together. I know that you all probably want to talk to each other and have a full conversation, but the goal of this exercise is there's going to be 3 different times we're going to break out into 2 people. And the first time, I'd like so one of you is going to tell something super exciting in your life, and the other one is going to be the one listening. You're not conversing, you're just listening. Okay. And the person who's listening, your body is going to be present and your mind is going to be active. So, like, think about your to-do list, think about your kids, think about whatever. And then you're going to swap, where the other person is going to tell something exciting that's going on. And then the other person will be body present, mind active. So we're going to take about 3 minutes to do this. You can get into the room. The person with the shortest hair go first, and then take about 45 to 60 seconds, and then swap, and then we'll come back here. We're going to put you into breakout rooms. Welcome back. So before we talk about how it went, I'm going to send you into another breakout room with somebody else. You'll get the same 3 minutes. That feel good enough? Was that plenty of time? Seems like it would be. I mean, we could even do 2 minutes. Do you think 2 minutes would be better? Okay, 3, keep it at 3. All right, so this time, your mind is gonna be present and your body's gonna be away. And this is how you're gonna do it on Zoom. You're going to leave the camera and you can go sit on the couch or somewhere out of view and be very present with the person, like paying attention, but your body is not there. Okay? So we'll hop into breakout rooms and I'll see you back here in 3 minutes. All right, welcome back. So we have a few moments to hear a couple of your experiences on what that was like. So we have room for maybe 2 or 3 people to share. Who is willing to share first?
I'll share. I'm off mute.
Okay.
The first one was doing it in this kind of format was actually hard. And part of what was hard about it was at first it was easy. It was like, so just start thinking about your to-do list. And I was like, easy. I do this all the time. And then the more she spoke about something that was exciting to her, the more it was like it was like I could feel myself pulling my brain off into the to-do list. And then I would get sucked back, and then I would pull my brain off into the to-do list. And then there would also be little moments that were more organic, where she would pull me back for a second and she would say something that inspired my mean to be like, ooh, Candy, this is what that relates to in my own life. And then I would be like off more in the way that I usually am. And I heard so much more of it the second time. And I'm just realizing now as I'm saying it, like I was noticing like a desire for my body to want to come back and be there too. But it was kind of less hard or less painful, in part because I was laying on the ground off camera. So I would feel this like, oh, I want to like be with her in body too. I'd have to get up. Like it was easier to be like, and I would notice like I would laugh or sounds would come out. So there was a way of like, that sound came from my body. So it's almost like I was with you for a second.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Is there anybody else who would love to share their experience?
I would.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with Lori. There was a painful bit to the first version where my mind had to go elsewhere. And I think a part of that is that I love Lori, and so I want to be present with her. And so as much as it comes naturally to me to go down the rabbit hole of my to-do list, I also felt like I was being sucked back in. Like that's a space where I feel comfy and happy and I want to be. What surprised me was in the other version where my mind got to just drop in and my body was absent. That's present in so many of my relationships because I have this metaphysical connection that the voice of someone that I love, or even just someone talking excitedly, is enough for my soul to feel connected to them. So it doesn't matter where my body is, as much as I have a longing to like wrap my physical arms around you and hug you in response to this excitement and joy. I feel so much more strongly connected with or without my body present.
Beautiful perspective. Thank you for sharing that. So what you just experienced was you as the listener and the receiver of that activity. Remember, there's also the other side of this activity. What happens in your day-to-day life and business where your body is present and your mind is active? So let's say you're talking to a potential client. Your body is there and you're listening, but you're thinking about the next things to say, or you're thinking about, what offer you're going to present or whatever. Or maybe it shows up when you go to record a live or a video and you're thinking, I wonder what people are thinking of me. I wonder if this is right. Or maybe perhaps it's just in your day-to-day life. You know what it felt like as the receiver of these things. So how would it feel if you had mind, body, and spirit present as the receiver, as well as yourself? And what would it mean for you to bring even more presence into your life and into your experiences? To not only take the perspective of what you hear a lot with presence about if you're thinking into the future or you're thinking into the past, there's different anxieties and fears that can come up versus being in the present moment. That is one way that it shows up. And it's also your presence as a person. There's no right or wrong answer to any of this equation. It all comes down to what is important for you, what is aligned for you, what are you able to practice in your day-to-day life. Which brings us into the third one, embodiment. So excited about this one because embodiment now, especially in the spiritual world, like the other ones, gets overused a lot. A lot. And the record keeper shared that it could be from like an egoic place, as if someone has arrived this place, like especially, this is nothing against these people saying it, but just the conversations that are being had in the spiritual space of like, I do somatic healing and I'm embodied. I'm an embodied practitioner. I'm embodied. Like you just hear it so much. You're like, what the hell does it mean? All right. Got more juice to share with you, more stick figures. Everybody can see the screen? Okay.
They're a little off to the side.
Oh, like the screen is? Was that how it was before?
Better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Just learned something about Zoom. I want to use the presenter thing. And if I move it off the screen, you can't see it. Good to know. Thank you. Okay. So here's how the record keepers broke it down. We get knowledge that comes in through our head, right? We learn things from books or experiences or whatever that we're doing. Then that knowledge, the next step would be integration. And then the next step is embodiment. This is how we come to embodiment. Taking a little bit further, knowledge is the mind. The information comes in and channels through your mind. It's then processed, filtered, potentially overwhelming. There's so many experiences when it hits our mind. Ideas. So you may say things like, that makes sense, or that's cool, or aha, that's exactly what I need to do. And maybe you've even had a lot of this today. You've had these ahas or these realizations. I've seen them in the chat. So what's the next step? Integration. The heart, coming down into the heart space. It's like, all right, now I've gone through what resonates, thrown out the things that don't, and now I can see or I can feel the lessons. I'm integrating them, practicing them. Especially when it comes to what we were talking about with the presence. As you go into your life and you practice presence in all ways, this is now the integration step. And then we get to you, woohoo. This is who I am and how I operate. This is the embodiment. Like it's when these things are just a part of who you are. I heard recently an old mentor of mine say something to the effect of, when you know your stuff and you're a speaker, you don't need notes to remind you of what it is that you're teaching, because you are like living your content. You're living those things. There's nothing wrong with notes. That's not the point of this story or this reference point. The point is more about like the more that you are living these things that you are learning in the mind, bringing into the heart, and they just become part of who you are. That's the embodiment. And my personal opinion is that so many people jump to embodiment and say they're embodied, but then I would venture and be like, are you? Maybe you're in the process of embodying, but if we also lay this over with identity shifting and claiming and stepping into a new identity, here's another example. Let's say you learn that yoga or working out or eating a certain way is a really good idea for your body. So you're like, cool, that's awesome. I want to do that. But then you really haven't like figured out what resonates with you. You haven't moved it into this heart space because maybe you're trying to do someone else's program, or you're trying to do, yoga 6 days a week because that's what you heard. And maybe you really do have a desire for that, but like you're at this state where you need to figure out like what resonates, feel the lessons, learn from it, maybe chunk it down. Like you're integrating, you're finding what works for you. What's the flow? What are the things? Then there's a point where you're like, no, this is who I am. This is just how I operate. I get up, I do the thing, I move on. Like it's not this like feel that integration can sometimes be a little chunky, can be a little clunky. Sometimes it can be. I mean, sometimes we just go through integration really quickly, but I know my experiences tend to be a little chunkier and clunkier in that space. So intuitive leadership, with these 3 characteristics, I said them in the order that I presented them as 1, 2, 3, but what if perhaps they were presence first, authenticity second, and embodiment third? Does it matter what order they're in? Maybe. Maybe there's some things in your life that if you came into a place of presence, you would come across and be able to notice the things that were out of alignment to be able to bring you into this inner and outer authenticity. To then go through that process of taking the knowledge and the input to be able to move it into integration, to be able to move it into embodiment. So as we close up the, my teaching part of this, this is where we shift into, and this is not part of Speaker Studio, but this is where we shift into what does intuitive leadership mean to you? What questions do you have? What would you like to share and speak into this space?